My name is Hisashi Wakabayashi. I'm a 30-year-old regular office employee. This is a story of a troublesome incident caused by my older brother. I have a wife who's the same age as me. Her name is Tomomi. This is our third year of being married. We were both 30 years old, and given our age and that we were finally financially stable, we had started talking about the possibility of having kids. I, of course, wanted to have kids with you, but I also knew that it was a big physical undertaking for women. On top of that, I knew that you would have to take time off of work too. I'll support you the best I can, but I want to prioritize your feelings. It's up to you.
You're always thinking of me, and I really do appreciate it. I also can't wait to have kids with you. Let's do this together.
And so, together, we decided to really start trying for a baby. We did some research online and found out that there were a lot of factors involved, like body temperature and the timing of the ovulation cycle. We decided to move forward while prioritizing Tomomi's health and condition. Unfortunately, a year went by and we were still unsuccessful. According to multiple medical studies, when a couple has trouble getting pregnant for more than a year, there was a big chance of infertility. Just in case, we went to a fertility test together, and were met with the devastating news that my wife was in fact infertile. Upon hearing this, Tomomi was sent into a deep depression.
I'm so sorry. Because of me, you also won't be able to have kids. And I'm so sorry. It's not too late for you. If you want to marry somebody else, then I completely understand.
What are you saying? Don't be dumb. I married you because I love you. I married you because I want to be a family with you, Tomomi. Sure, I wish that we could have children together, but I never thought for even a second that I would divorce you or ever marry someone else. I want to be with you and only you forever. Of course, I was disappointed that we wouldn't be able to have kids, but in this day and age, there were multiple other ways that we could have children. The two of us talked about it, and as a result, we decided against the fertility treatment due to the physical and financial risk. Instead, we were going to consider adoption. If we're going to adopt a child, do you think that we should discuss it with our parents first?
Yeah, that's true. They were also looking forward to having grandchildren, so that's a good idea.
My wife and I went to my parents' house to go and speak with them. Since it was the Obon holiday, all of our relatives were gathered together at my parents' house. I sat my immediate family down, and when they asked me about our plans to have kids, I spoke to them honestly about our situation. When... Infertility? Well, that sucks. Guess you really drew the short stick there, huh?
How unfortunate. You're defective as a woman.
Hey, mind your words.
It's okay, really. Just don't make a big deal.
This rude couple with no sense of respect is embarrassingly Hideyuki, my brother who is 5 years older than me, and his wife, that makes her my sister-in-law. Just like this, there were people who would say incredibly insensitive things without any empathy, and to be honest, I don't like them. I'm pretty sure that their son will be entering middle school this year. Luckily for them, he was accepted into a prestigious middle school, and the two of them could not stop bragging about it. Despite being in such an irritating position, Tomomi kept on saying not to worry about it, so I did my best to ignore them. However, a few weeks after we had gone home... Yo, you got a minute? Yeah? What? I was thinking of coming over to your house right now. Are you home? Well, yeah, it's the day off, so we're both home, but what do you want? I need to ask for a favor. A favor? What is it? You'll find out when I get there, don't sweat it. Just tell me already. Even if you're my brother, you can't just come barging into my house without any explanation. How cold, even to your own older brother. Fine, I'll tell you the reason. We were thinking of having you take our daughter off of our hands. Excuse me? I was in shock at this insane favor that he was suggesting. First of all, my brother hadn't spoken about his daughter in a very long time. Part of it is because he's always bragging about his son, but in any case, I thought that he was making a terrible joke. But to our surprise, he actually arrived at our house with my niece Maho with him. What? Seeing Maho in front of us, Tomomi and I both froze. If I remember correctly, she could have been entering the 3rd grade this year, but she was so skinny and scrawny with a tired look on her face, and she looked far below her own age. We invited them inside and my brother started to talk. Hey, see, you were just thinking about adopting a kid, right? Well, this is perfect. I'll give you this kid. You're even related by blood, so that's even better, isn't it? We couldn't believe what we were hearing. We continued listening and found out the situation. Maho was a very quiet and calm kid, and regardless of whether she was home or somewhere else, she would always be reading books. Even in this very moment, she was sitting in the corner silently reading a book. However, she had difficulty staying calm at times and was causing some disturbances at school, to the point where her teachers had contacted the parents about it multiple times. She was also having trouble socializing, and because she had never had any friends, she was also being bullied at school. Because of these repeated instances, they switched her over to homeschooling, but she refused to study and would only read her books all day. After explaining the whole situation, my brother said out loud, "Even when we talk to her, she doesn't respond. But then if we take our eyes off of her, she wanders around by herself. And she's just a handful in general. We don't know what to do with her anymore, and so that's why we'll give her to you. Having our son is more than enough for us." He was saying all this with her sitting right beside him. There was a lot that I wanted to say, but all that I could think was, "I see, but it looks like she's really lost a lot of weight. Are you feeding her properly?" Was how abnormally skinny she was. Without an inkling of responsibility, my brother said, "In our house, if you don't listen to what the parents say, the punishment is to take away your dinner. But even when we did take away her dinner, she still doesn't respond, so, How long was this going for? When was the last time that she had a proper meal?" It was a clear case of child abuse. There were tears streaming down her face.
This poor girl! For how long has she had to endure this suffering?
It looked like there was no need for further discussion. I made eye contact with Tomomi and turned to face my brother. "Fine, but in return, don't you ever show your face in front of me or this child ever again." "As if you gotta ask me twice. See ya never!" And just like that, we took in my niece, and we suddenly became parents to a little girl in the 3rd grade. A few days later... How's Maho doing? Is she okay?
Well, she doesn't seem to be too upset that she was thrown away by her own family.
I guess when you have parents like that, it makes sense.
But I have to say, he wasn't wrong in that she's different. It seems like she really does love books, and she'll spend the entire day reading from morning to night.
I see. But if that's all that she was doing, then it's pretty normal, and maybe she's just a really calm and quiet kid.
But her ability to focus is really amazing. It's almost to the point where she forgets to eat her own meals.
But she really needs to eat. By the way, what about the toys that my friend brought over for her?
She hasn't even touched them. It seems like she has no interest in games or dolls or anything.
Well, I guess that saves us some money, so that's not a bad thing.
I'm a little worried that she's hesitating.
Let's keep an eye on it. Just like my brother had said, Maho was a bit of a strange kid. She always looked like she was dreaming with her head in the clouds. She could have conversations pretty normally, but it was more obvious when she was left alone and doing nothing. For example, whenever she's reading a book or lost in her own thoughts, she would never respond even if we were speaking directly to her. She wouldn't even attempt to do any of the work for her homeschooling, and it made me think that she must really dislike studying. However, just as we were thinking that she was really calm, she would have sudden bursts of energy where she would not be able to stand still. When we would go out with her, she would run off on her own and go missing. I tried to do some research online, and from everything that I found, I could only assume that she had some sort of developmental disability.
Do you think we should take her to a hospital or a treatment center and have her assessed?
I looked into that too, but all of the appointments were full for the next 6 months.
Wow, 6 months is a long time. Well, why don't we make the reservation and we can keep an eye on her in the meantime?
That's a good idea.
The most important thing is that the two of us try our best to understand her. She might be a little different, but at the core we know she's a sweet girl.
You're right. It's our duty to look after her with love and care. We couldn't deny that she was a strange child, and perhaps there would be a lot of difficulties ahead, but it's not like we were distressed by any of it. All that being said, we were really enjoying our new lives as parents, and cherished the time that we got to spend together as a family. However, one day, my wife had gone out to run errands, and I was home alone with Maho, when... Hey, are you busy right now? Something crazy just happened.
What? What happened?
I just lost in a game of shogi.
Oh, is that it? Sheesh, don't scare me like that. I thought something happened to Maho.
No, but that's the thing. I lost to Maho.
Oh, really? I didn't know that she had any experience with a game of shogi.
Nope, she said it was her first time ever seeing the game.
Did you go easy on her, or was it just beginner's luck?
Of course I was at first, but she caught on so quickly that I eventually was going all out, and by the time we finished, I didn't stand a chance.
I'm going to ask again, but you said she had never played shogi before, right?
Yeah, even though I can't believe it. I loved playing shogi as a hobby and had been playing for years. That day, I'd been practicing by myself when Maho came over. Are you interested? I can teach you.
Yeah.
Maho had been staring at me playing, so I invited her to join me. I handed her a shogi book and taught her the basic rules. Before we started our first game, to my disbelief, within a matter of hours, I was unable to beat her. Sure, it was only a hobby for me, so I wasn't that strong to begin with, but even then, there was no way that I should lose to an elementary school girl who had just learned the rules and had never played before. When my wife returned home, I told her the story once again, and we realized that she might be even more special than we could have imagined. Shortly after, we got a notice from the hospital that our appointment turn had arrived, and we were able to be seen by a specialist sooner than we had expected. That was when we found out that she was gifted. We learned that a gifted child had an inherently high level of intelligence, and to put it simply, she's a genius. Maho's IQ scored at above 160, and had a brain that would even give Einstein a run for his money. According to the doctor, it was very common to misdiagnose a gifted child as having a developmental disability. That would explain why my brother and his wife, as well as my wife, and I took so long to recognize it. Well then, why do you hate studying so much, Maho?
Because it's too easy. Once I look at it, I can figure it out. So I don't need anyone to teach it to me.
That's true. I guess you've been reading those books meant for adults with no problem, haven't you?
My old dad and mom would only give me easy books to read. But ever since you said I can read whatever book I want around this house, it's been really fun. I'm so much happier living with my new mom and dad.
This was the first time that Maho had called us her mom and dad, and it made me so emotional that my eyes started to well up. But this wasn't a time for tears. This meant that her elementary school studies were far too easy for her, and wasting her time, so there was no point in trying to force her to go to a regular school. My wife and I started to look for more suitable options for her education, and I could keep up with her intellect and building our lives around her potential. 4 years later...
Dad, what do you think? Do I look good in the uniform?
You look great, honey. You've grown up so fast. You're almost like an adult.
Alright guys, look this way for a photo. Say cheese!
Maho was entering her first year of middle school. When it came to her studies, once we prepared a higher level material for her that was aimed at gifted children, she focused on it with the same level of passion as she had for reading, and her genius became more and more evident. In addition, we took her for an operation to a membership club full of gifted children. She was so excited to finally have other people like her, and we decided to enroll her. There, she was finally able to socialize with other kids and make her first friends. Even though she had so much difficulty fitting in before, being around others that were like her made it easier for her to communicate. Nowadays, even though there are moments when she is still a little different, she is able to communicate with and understand normal people like us without any issues. Although there are many times when we can't keep up with what she was saying. Maho, you're in teacher mode! We came up with a system that anytime we told her that she was in teacher mode, it meant that she was getting carried away in a conversation that we couldn't understand. Inside of her brain was pages and pages of information that she had been collecting ever since she was young. So it was only natural for her to speak about things that we couldn't keep up with. Even then, Maho's genius became well known in the area. So people were understanding and would let it slide when she would go off on her own tangents. What was even more amazing was that Maho passed a university exam in America where she could skip a few grades. So starting next year, our daughter was going to be a college student. What are we gonna do with you so far away? And America at that, the other side of the world.
Don't worry, I'm gonna video call you every day, and I will come back during all the holidays. That's right, this is our first step to letting go of our child and letting her become an adult.
I know. I was overwhelmed with sadness at the fact that she was going to be going so far away. I vowed to make sure that her last year of middle school in Japan would be full of happy memories to take with her. Until one day, an unexpected person showed up at our door. What are you doing here? Yo, long time no see, brother. I told you that I never wanted to see you ever again, didn't I? It was my brother, who had thrown away his own child. I hadn't seen him in years, and he didn't look great, with his clothes all dirty and full of holes. You could tell in one look that he was not doing well. But that was none of my business, so I was not happy to see him. I tried to kick him out, but... Please! Even if it's just a little bit, please just let me borrow some money! He got down on his knees and started begging me for money. I knew that I had a bad feeling about this, and I let out a big sigh. I let him explain his situation to me, and it was beyond my wildest imagination. It all started when his son was starting to work part-time at a restaurant. My brother's son had already become a high schooler. Well, I guess he is Maho's older brother, so he's already at that age, I thought, and I continued listening. One day, they found out that their son had been putting the ingredients into the trash can and then taking them back out and putting them on plates to serve. And he had been taking videos of it as a joke. Even worse, he had uploaded those videos to social media. He was trying to go viral, and as expected, that video blew up on both social media and in their faces. The video was traced back to him, and even their address was exposed. And when his school found out, they expelled him. Their house was bombarded with anger and hate, to the point where none of them could even go outside anymore. Because of that, my brother and my brother's wife had no choice but to quit their jobs, and overnight their house went up in flames. To make matters worse, they were sued by the corporation that owned the restaurant, and they had hit rock bottom with nowhere else to go and no money in sight. However, to be honest, I had no sympathy for them in me, and I was just gonna say no when... With terrible timing, Maho had just gotten home from school. Seeing her, my brother extended out his arms, saying, "Maho, look at you! You've gotten so big! You're now, that's right, you're in middle school, right? Anyway, you've gotten so big and beautiful." He continued to stare at her, looking her up and down as though he was evaluating the price of a product. I tried to get in between them, but my brother ignored me and continued talking. "Oh, that's right. I gave you this kid, so you gotta pay me for her." "Excuse you?" "Yeah, what was I thinking? Handing over a child to you for free? That was a mistake, so, pay up. Let's say, 10,000. I couldn't believe my ears, and I was on the verge of throwing hands when...
Who are you? My dad is the person standing right there. Why should my dad have to pay $10,000 to a stranger I never even seen before?
With ice in her eyes, she proclaimed that she had absolutely no ties to my brother. With her sharp memory, there was no way that she'd forgotten the person standing in front of her, so this made her intentions loud and clear.
Dad, should I call the police?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Dad was just getting fed up with this, so I'll call the cops immediately. "Hey, come on now! I'm your brother, so we share the same blood! I'm your father, and I gave birth to you, so please, just help me!"
Well then, why don't I take this opportunity to teach you one more thing? I'm actually rich, and I have a lot of money of my own.
What?
You know, it turns out that I have a gift for trading stocks. I started around the time I was high school age, and now I have about $300,000 of my own money saved up. That's because my mom and dad accepted me for who I was and raised me with love and care to fulfill my potential. If you had also raised your child with love and care, then I'm sure none of this would have happened. How pathetic.
What? No! You're lying! You're a disabled child and a worthless piece of crap! There's no way that's possible! Stop spewing such crazy lies!
Well, whether you choose to believe it or not is up to you. But if you ever try to get in the way of my happiness ever again, I won't take it lightly.
The police arrived shortly after, and my brother was dragged out of our house. Maho said with a refreshed look on her face.
Phew! I'm so glad I was able to say what I've always wanted to say before leaving Japan.
My brother's return was unpleasant and unwelcome, but if it meant that Maho could get that weight off of her chest, then maybe it was alright in the end. After that, I started to get calls left and right from my parents and our relatives. It turned out that my brother and his wife had been going around to anyone and everyone to try and get their help. Of course, no one agreed. I had already spoken to my parents and all of our relatives about their treatment of Maho. We were only telling them in order to avoid running into them at any family gatherings or events, so I didn't even think that it would lead to their isolation from the family. That being said, I have no intention of feeling sorry for them. Not at all. The abuse that Maho endured for years could never be erased. All this meant was that they were finally receiving punishment for what they had done. My brother and his wife were eventually evicted from their house, losing everything. My relative in real estate notified us that my brother's house was up for sale, and none of us know where they are now. I can only imagine where they might have ended up, and surely it isn't good. Maho, are you sure it was okay for you to talk about your assets with such gold diggers like that?
That's a good point. I'm worried they might try to come after you now.
Don't worry, it's fine. I'm going to install a home security system here. And even from afar, I'm going to protect you two, my mom and dad.
You've become such an amazing adult. I don't know what we did to deserve a daughter like you.
I know, we're so lucky.
What are you guys saying? The only reason I've been able to come this far is because of you guys. So I want to do whatever I can to support you in return.
Maho.
To be completely honest with you, when I was brought to this house, I had low expectations and no hope. I thought it would be the same anywhere I went, that there would be nobody who could ever understand me. But that day, Mom, even though you were meeting me for the first time, you held me with tears streaming down your face. And that was the first time that I'd ever felt love in my life. I'm so glad I was brought to this house, and I'm so grateful that I grew up in this house with you as my parents. I may be going to America, but I'll always be thinking of you. Maho!
Like the day she met Maho for the first time, Tomomi held Maho and hugged her tightly through her tears, and I joined them, holding my beloved wife and my daughter in my arms. My wife and I were lost at the fact that we couldn't bear children, and Maho was lonely and stuck with a family that didn't love her. We can only believe that it was fate for the three of us to find each other. Beyond a blood relationship, we have an even deeper connection between the three of us that can never be broken. And I'm going to do everything I can to protect this happiness that we found.